This
The meeting-
conference will now be recorded.
If we could approve the meeting minutes from, we'll call the meeting to order. If we could approve the meeting minutes from May 20th, 2020.
So moved.
Those meeting minutes are approved. And item number 3 on the agenda, I've got,
Did somebody second that, Matt?
sorry, I didn't hear. I can't, yeah, Anthony, can I get a second on the meeting minutes?
Second.
I think
Okay.
that was Sean Muskie.
That was John
No.
Conald.
Oh, okay, let's do a little warm up. If you're speaking, why don't you say your name and then continue on.
Okay,
John Conald seconds Tony's motion to approve the minutes.
okay, any questions on the meeting minutes? Those meeting minutes are approved then. Next item I'm gonna do here, let's do a little roll call for the,
We need to vote for that, Matt, first. All those in favor?
all those in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
The motion on the meeting minutes passes. Let's do a quick roll call for the, let's do for the Invest in Willmar board members. I'll call your name and just say here. And so I'll start. I'm the chair, Matt Dawson, so I'm here. Tony Ammon,
Here.
John Conald,
Here.
Mary Swatsky,
Here.
Bob Poe. I did get a note, Bob is not able to make it, so Bob is not here. Dennis Anderson. Okay. Councilman Nelson,
Here.
Councilman Muskie.
Here.
Okay, so we have everybody but Dennis and Bob, so we have 6 people in the meeting. As far as the agenda goes, the additions and deletions to the agenda for this afternoon, what I will do is I've got a couple adjustments that I don't know that that's got out to everybody. So what I have, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, I've got something different. I've got the community center update from Julie, number 1, the event center update from Gretchen, number 2. I've got a fields community update on the item number 3. And then at that point, the 4th item on the agenda I've got would be just the prioritization of the projects. Any questions on the agenda?
Could I ask, could we just get a tax update from Steve or Brian?
Okay, why don't I add that, Steve and Brian, let's put that on the number 4. And then we'll have the prioritization of the concept of prioritizing the projects at number 5. Mary?
Matt, Dennis is the caller. He's on. He
Okay.
is listening.
Okay, and I believe he has to another meeting at 5, so, okay, as long as he can hear us and we'll make a note of that. So everybody comfortable with the agenda? Any questions on that? Community center, event center, fields, a tax update from what Brian and Steve can share with us, and then the priority list. Okay, do we need a motion on that, or is that just? We need a motion on that?
I'll move to approve the agenda.
Okay. Second?
Second, John Conald.
Sorry, Mary, that was Sean.
Any discussion? Okay, looks like our agenda's set. That motion passes to on
Matt,
the
I'm
agenda.
going to interrupt one more time. Who's the other caller on? Just so we identify everybody.
I don't think that we need to know. I think people can call in just kind of like they come to a meeting, Mary. I don't think they have to identify themselves, just like they're sitting in the back row of a meeting. I think this is open to the public. So whoever jumps on the phone, they can tune in.
Yeah, we'll
Okay.
likely have some of our subcommittee people listening in today.
Yep. Okay, Adri.
Oh, just so that everybody knows that, because I think there's just an invite that goes out with a number to get on. And so if it is public, then we should make it public to anyone who wants to jump on. So,
Yeah, I guess I just kind of assume that's how you guys are running the meetings, where you could jump on just like you go to, or you watch it on the council screen. So, but yes, these are open to the public, just so everybody knows. Anybody can listen. Anybody can. They can't speak. They're not on the agenda unless they're called on. But yes, these are open to the public, so people can call in and listen to the meeting. And I believe this is recorded as well. So let's start off with item number 1 with Julie. If you want to give us an update, thanks for joining us. Anything you can share with us on the community center, where your group is, and appreciate you joining us this afternoon.
Okay, great to be here. Now, I don't know if you've ever had an update of everything that we've done, but we'll just kind of go very quickly through. We started with last year in June, we toured 8 facilities. So we went to Redwood Falls, Marshall, Granite Falls, Montevideo, Sartell, Monticello, St. Michael, and Maple Grove. So we did that in June of 2019. And then the City Hall did some tours in the fall. So I went along with those, and some of those had a community center attached and some didn't. But those were focused more on City Hall tours. Then in September of 2019, the committee got together and came up with a list of needs and wants that they wanted in a new facility or would like to see in a new facility. Then we were a part of selecting the architect for the City Hall Combination Community Center. And that's kind of where it was left, just kind of waiting for the architect to get on board and then start meeting with the 2 groups and coming up with an idea of how the shared space might work and the different rooms and areas that how the community center would fit. And so until we were going to see some blueprints, I think that's kind of where we were at. We were kind of waiting to see how the different things were going to fit. At one point, there was kind of a discussion about a commercial kitchen, and the event center was talking like they were going to put in a commercial kitchen. And so we felt that the Invest in Willmar group had to kind of decide. It didn't seem like it was wise that both facilities should have one, and what the need or want of the community was going to be for that particular item. So
Okay.
basically, we were waiting for the architects to come up with how the 2 were going to work together. Any questions?
Questions for Julie? Julie, who is the architect you guys have been dealing with? And I'm assuming that's the same one at the City Hall, obviously, right?
Yes. And I don't know. I don't have that in front of me.
But you did select what you said. Okay.
Brian will know.
Okay,
Jake,
that's all right. Brian.
That'll be BKV Architects. They're a very reputable firm.
So
Any
we
other
were,
questions for Julie?
we were just kind of waiting patiently for, kind of excited to see what they might draw up, waiting for them to get on board and then start meeting with the different members and the different stakeholders and start to put something together, and then we would have start to tweak it from what they had first come up with. But we're not there.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? It sounds like, yeah, everybody, obviously you're in a holding pattern at this point. I don't know if there's anything more that that we can discuss at this point, but
The only thing that I would mention is that as far as the different projects for the local option sales tax, the seniors were, I mean, at this point, I don't know that they would be super upset that this got set back a little bit because it's tied in with the city hall. They are okay with their facility because I think their biggest concern was the change and what was going to happen with a new facility. Would they still have the same amount of space? Would they still have the same amenities? Would they still be able to do the things that they like to do? And so I don't think they're putting a lot of pressure on to get the new facility built or put to the front of the line of all the different projects. But our concern is the age of that building and how much we're going to have to continue to sink into it to limp it along until we can have a new facility.
okay.
Mary's
Mary.
got a question.
Are you starting over, or are you continuing with being in conjunction with the city hall? Are they married to each other?
Just from my opinion, I would say we're still connected. I don't have any indication that we were going to split for any reason.
Okay.
Unless
Well,
Mr. Graham wants to weigh in on that.
So not to muddy the waters, but I mean, and we don't have to solve this, but I mean, is the city hall in the next likely to get answers in the next 1 to 3 years? Or is it 3 to 5 years or 5 to 7 years? Just, I mean, because naturally, if it's connected to the city hall, and just looking at priorities, if it's just flat out there, it's, in the next 3 to 6 years, that kind of tells us we're on the priority list.
Right.
This needs to go.
I think, speaking from the city council perspective, I think we have to see what the economy does and how the city's going to be sitting financially to take on that expense. Mr. Grammett, you got anything different?
No, I think you hit that on the head. We're just in a holding pattern, just like the Invest in Willmar projects are, until we get a good handle on where the revenue stream is. We'll make decisions. And at this point in time, due to the economy, there's there was concerns about people losing jobs, and the worst case scenario is the economy goes into a recession or whatever. We need to let this play out before we, as a city, place additional taxes for a new city hall. The sales tax part is a little bit easier. If the capacity is there, we capture it. If the taxes, for the city hall portion, the $8.5 million, that's in addition to what we're currently paying in taxes. So that's the question the city council has to answer. And I would think that as soon as the economy settles down to some extent, they'll be able to answer it. But I can't, project 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. I don't know that. That's a decision for the council.
Okay, thank you very much, Julie, for the update. and all the work and all the stuff that your group is doing. I know it's a little challenging to sit tight now, but I guess at this point, that's where we're at. Who would have ever expected this? So thanks for the update. You're obviously welcome to stay. And we'll move to the Gretchen, number 2 on the list for the event center. Gretchen, we can't see you, but I can see your initials.
All right, yep, I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, great. Awesome. Well, it's great to join you guys and give you an update on where we are at. So I guess I was wondering, do you want me to jump into kind of our priority list at this point? Should I wait for that later on? What are you exactly looking at from us at this point?
Yeah, Gretchen, I think just an update on from your meetings, where you're at, what you guys have, if you've got an order of a priority list that you guys want to share, just real general, whatever you think would help us, just kind of an update. It can be whatever direction you want to take it.
Sure. Okay, great. So yeah, we have had a subcommittee meeting, especially in the last, I'd say, 6 months or so, to really kind of hone in on where we feel things are at. And so just through all of our conversations, our number one objective is to make sure that this building, which encompasses all the pieces of our project, is as multi-use and multi-purpose as possible, meaning it really needs to be as large as possible. So that is one of the reasons we chose not to combine buildings or move forward with thinking about combining buildings with the rec fields, because we do feel like in the end, those projects need to stay separate so that those facilities can get as maximum use out of them as possible. So I just wanted to mention that's why we aren't going to move forward with that option that was brought to the table. And so the whole focus of our subcommittee was really to focus on the rec and event center. That is obviously the title of our committee. So we're really focusing on wanting to make sure that when we have the one shot to make that as best as it can be, that we encompass all that the voters voted on. And so we ultimately want to make sure that we are serving the most people as possible. So right now, with the information we've been given about having 2 million kind of at our fingertips at the moment, our priorities are, I'd say 1A and 1B are the locker room addition or expansion and the meeting room / office addition. That can be done within that 2 million number. We just got an updated kind of memorandum of budgets from LSE, which is our architect. And so that locker room addition is in the amount of just over $1,073,000. And the meeting room office addition is about 201,000. So that's what we feel would be the best moving forward. From there, we know that the rest of the projects listed underneath our subcommittee would be on hold until the funding is available for that. And we truly feel that the Rec and Event Center is going to end up being a big heart of this building. And so it needs to be done in its entirety, including all of the pieces that were voted on, and all of them we feel a big puzzle that needs to happen all at the same time. And so that's why we would keep all of the portions of that, which includes, of course, the multiple courts, the seating for concerts and shows, the kitchen, which I just want to make sure we understand, we would be talking about a catering kitchen, not a commercial kitchen. So I want to make sure, since that was just brought up by Julie, that there is a difference. A catering kitchen would simply allow food to be brought in. A commercial kitchen would allow for food to actually be prepped and cooked. So we are looking at a catering kitchen, not a commercial kitchen. And the kids' play space as well. So that is all part of that Rec Event Center conglomerate project. And we just feel like that needs to happen all together. Everything is linked together. And so we do not include any of those pieces into this current 2 million option that we're being given. The locker rooms and the meeting office space that we're talking about can be done without relying on any other parts of our project. So it doesn't have to happen at the same time as anything else. So we feel like that makes sense to move forward with those pieces. And they really are the things that are needed more immediately than any other piece of our project list at the moment. So that's kind of where we're at with that. And then following the Rec and Event Center, the last piece of our projects would be that outdoor covered skating rink. So I guess we'd say that's priority number 3 on our list. So 1 would be locker room addition and meeting room offices. 2 would be the entirety of the Rec and Event Center, which has a bunch of things underneath it. And 3 would be the outdoor skating rink. Okay.
Questions for
Yeah.
Gretchen? Audrey?
Yeah. Hi. Hi, Gretchen. It's Audrey. And I am familiar with the locker room. Can you speak a little bit more about the meeting room and where that would, is it part of the locker room addition or what would it be used for?
Yeah, so the the meeting room / office piece of it would actually be within the current area of the Park and Rec offices, and doing some reconfiguration of those spaces to get people out of things like the skate sharpening room and things like that where current offices sit. And really it's the most important piece of that is opening up into the lobby space so that there is better facilitation of that when people are coming and going from what will of course hopefully be this really large facility once the event and rec center is up and going, and it's going to be used by so many different groups and all that kind of thing. So it's utilizing that space better, so there's more eyes to the actual lobby. There's someone that's actually able to greet people when they're coming and going for all the myriad of activities that are going to be happening underneath the one building. So it would be within the existing facilities there. And then the locker room portion is the expansion addition to the north side of the Cardinal Arena.
So the meeting rooms, Gretchen, are onto the front of the building. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. Yes.
And then are those drawings done at some point where they can be presented or shared with the Investment Willmar board, or are they not finished up yet?
No, we do. LSE, yes, has given us kind of a spec, I guess it's called, or whatever that is, on that. Yeah, so yep, we can get that too, for sure.
Okay. Other questions, Audrey?
Matt, just a follow up to what you said. Is it an addition onto the front of the building, or is it
Nope.
existing space? And was it part of the original proposal as it was brought forward with the local option sales tax? I know that the locker rooms were, but I wasn't sure about the office.
So it is within existing space, so it is not an addition. And the locker rooms with meeting spaces is how it's listed. We did not take that as those had to be connected. We do know that there is an additional way future option to have that second level put above the locker room addition. So that is additional meeting potential space. But what we're talking about would allow us to do that within the existing building and not be looking forward to that second level option. We'd be able to get that meeting space with what's there right now.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Yeah.
Other questions?
I do.
John.
So this is John Conal, Gretchen. So I just have a question on office space. So the office space would be used by the Park and Rec staff, correct?
Yes, that's what's there right now, I believe. Yes.
Yep. And so there'd be offices and meeting spaces. Meeting spaces would be used for general public meetings, events, those types of things that we're.
Yep, that's my understanding, that the meeting space is something that would be available to, whether it's a rentable space, a sign-up space, I don't know exactly how that would function, but yep, that's open to use for space, just like anyone could come and use one of the gym facilities and such like that. Yep.
Anybody else? Mary. Mary, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I had to get my left and my right figured out there. So I like how you divide up your project into 3 different stages. When you get to stage number 2, have you been looking to see what a rec center would look like, and or the event part of it? Can it be done for 8 million?
Yes, so let me just pull out quick numbers here to give you an idea. Let me find them. Okay. So the rest of, aside from the meeting room and office addition, LSE has been able to give us a breakdown of all the rest of our projects fitting into that 33% reduction, that, or I guess into the 67%, whatever way you want to talk about it. So yes, that could be done within the additional 8 million that's left to come in. Yep.
Anybody else? Questions? Tony.
Gretchen, 2 questions and a comment. Thank you for doing this and for coming today. One, can you share the cost, like, of the event center, the outdoor rink? What does that entail? What does that look like? And then how are discussions with the curling club? Is there any cost savings? Are they close to being ready to build, or is that still way off? Thank you.
Yeah. So I'll answer the curling question first. The shorter answer is they are moving forward. That's our understanding. And when we really met with LSE and got into hard kind of details about their schematic design, we did keep the curling facility in mind, because we do think it's really important, again, as we're thinking maximize space availability and all that's to come in future rollouts of all pieces of this. We do think it's really important that they be considered in that. And so LSE was able to see where their facility could be in conjunction with the Rec and Event Center and in conjunction with the outdoor skating rink, and how all of that would be laid out in a really good positioning to be utilized for like max capacity. So yes, our understanding is they are moving forward. Gary Laughlin, of course, is on our committee, so he's been able to keep us up to date with that. And although we know they are not part of this project, but we definitely kept them in mind the whole way, because we think that's really important. And if everything were to go as we feel would work best, they would be connected to the Rec and Event Center. They would share a hallway, for lack of a better term, that would be able to run our Rec and Event Center right from that building into theirs, so that when they are not using it, it can be connected to, again, this grander building space, and really be utilized much beyond the curling club itself. And then your second question, as far as numbers, here's kind of a quick breakdown. The Rec and Event Center itself is about 5.6. And that includes like design contingency, site work, general conditions. That also includes what would have to, of course, happen with the lobby, would have some remodeling. So that's all a part of that 5.6. Again, the meeting room office addition is just about 201. The covered outdoor rink is just under $1 million, but that's without any of that site work, general conditions, all that kind of money. So it's going to be over $1 million. What else can I tell you? The link. So of course, eventually part of this is linking to the dome. That's another $1 million. Oh, sorry. No. Hold on. Make sure I'm looking at the right numbers here. No, the dome link is 85,000. Sorry, wrong link. Yeah, 85,000 for the dome link. We also talked about, we went back and forth about whether we feel it should be a 2-station event center versus 3. We did stick with 2, but there's that, again, potential for a future addition of a 3rd, as well as potential changes with the visitor and Warhawk locker rooms. That's about 201,000 as well. And then that locker room mezzanine, that 2nd floor, that'd be about 1.8 in the future.
Any other questions? John?
Just a question, Gretchen. Has there been any discussions about not connecting the building to the existing building and just, I mean, to save costs on that? Or because, you know, being with the Rec Fields Committee, that's been a discussion on our end about the bubble, not connecting it to the Cardinal Arena or the Blue Line to save that cost of the linking or connections. I don't know, has there been any discussions amongst your subcommittee about those priorities of connecting or not connecting?
Yeah, we have. In the end, what we came down to is that when we, and Rob really has the best eyesight on this piece of it, because he knows exactly what it takes to kind of operate all that building and move things around. And again, when we're thinking about long-term, we want this to be as utilized as possible with the best use of space. We've really felt like connecting it is that best use of space because we want it all under one roof. That is one of the essential parts of it, is making this one facility and being able to get from one to the other very easily, and making it much more usable for all the different groups that will potentially be coming and going, whether it's local or people, renting the space or whatever. So we did talk about that, but we do feel like connection makes the most sense. It also makes the most sense when we look at the big picture of again, the curling club being right next door, the outdoor rink being there in the future, all of those pieces, again, part of this puzzle, and to have them connected seemed like the best puzzle in the end.
Brian?
Yeah, I just want to update on the curling. We did have a conversation, I believe it was last week. They are ready to go, but they're waiting for Invest in Willmar to make decisions on what projects are going to be occurring so that they can then plan and tie in. And so they're in the pause mode. They say they've got the money necessary to get going. So as soon as we can make a decision, you'll likely see them take off and try and get their project up and running also. So obviously it has to mesh with future plans at the event center. So, the big picture has to be, kind of set in stone, and then build the pieces in as money becomes available so that they can then make their decisions on where and how they build their facility. So that's just an update that we had from last week.
Audrey, thank you.
Just a follow-up to that. Is there a master drawing? I mean, has something been put together for the land out there that would be available to look at and kind of say, oh yeah, that now I understand how these pieces fit together or why they need to fit together? And it feels like we're far enough along that maybe that's something that we should be able to look at.
Yeah, sorry, I'm nodding here and I realize you can't see me. Yes, so I apologize, since I haven't been a part of your guys' meetings before, I'm not sure what you all know and don't know, but yes, we have full schematic designs from LSC that show the full layout of every piece of our puzzle. It also shows where the curling club would potentially be, because we did ask LSC to keep that in mind and show us what that would look like. And it even shows can show you kind of where some of the rec field stuff potentially is, so you get a really good, great kind of aerial view of each piece of the puzzle. Yep.
John, go ahead.
All right, two questions, one for Brian and one for Gretchen. Brian, you said the curling committee is up and ready to go. Does that mean they are ready to just get the architectural plans, or does that mean they're ready to get the architectural plans and proceed to building their facility? And then for Gretchen, you said the rink, I didn't get a definite answer on the money on the rink. You said under $1 million or over $1 million. I just wondered if you had a little bit more specific numbers on the outdoor rink.
Brian, go ahead.
If maybe Rob can fill in with parts that I may be missing, but is my understanding they have the architectural money set, and that they're looking at various kinds of buildings that might be appropriate for their facility. So they're at the point where they could probably say, let's get going on the design. This is the kind of building we're looking for. They're at that design stage. They say they've got the money. I think earlier they had done some little bit of design work so that they could go out fundraising. That's like a conceptual, this is what it might look like, little razzle dazzle picture kind of thing. And that was done, but I think they're ready to do the whole project, but they just need to know where on the site, does it fit? So they don't want to build it and now we say 2 years from now, well, now it's in the wrong spot. We can't do what we really want to do. So that's the point they're at. Once the investor Willmar says, okay, here's the schematic on all the things that we're going to do at the event center. Yep, if you plan on using that area, you're safe. So I think that's when they'd start the architectural design work for their project.
Anything to add to that, Rob, or is that pretty much the update?
That's pretty accurate for what Brian said.
Okay. Gretchen?
Yep. So John, the number for the covered outdoor rink is $975,644. However, that is without additional site work numbers, general condition numbers, and things like that. Whereas the numbers that I gave for like the Rec and Event Center already had those additional costs built in.
Okay, and awesome update. Any other questions? Mary, go ahead.
And Gretchen, thank you for the work that you're doing and bringing forth. When you mentioned you went ahead and did this with the 67% of the monies, so is that correct?
Yes, so the numbers that I was listing for what we think we can move forward with the 2 million is including that reduction. Same with the Rec and Event Center.
And have you I'm not setting you up, but just refresh my memory. Have you been given that direction that you have to have the 67%?
I guess yes and no. I think that we were told when we met as a subcommittee, our understanding was that was a recommendation And so we asked our architect to give us numbers based on that so we could see what that would look like. And because we feel we can do a few projects like I've listed within that 2 million, we went ahead with those ones. But the rec and event center, the rink, things like that, we know obviously they're not going to fit in 2 million anyway. And so we would want to see those as close to the 100%, money mark as possible. But we got the numbers with the reduction so we could see what that would look like as well.
I think
Does that answer
Mary,
your question?
yeah, no, Gretchen, I think Mary, we've all kind of been operating under is just reducing the professional fees gets you down to that 60 to 70% of your budget. I think that's what Gretchen's referring to, I believe. Not another 33%. I believe
Correct.
that's, yeah. So we haven't, does that make sense,
Yes.
Mary? Just like you've got 2 million, but it's probably going to be 1.5 once the professional fees are out. I think that's what I'm speaking for Gretchen. Hopefully I'm speaking accurately for her. I believe they've been trying to focus on that 7.5, just knowing what professional fees are going to take some of that. Correct, Gretchen? Is that?
Yes, 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 that should be correct, because when we asked them to give us updated numbers which showed the reduction, that is what we are using to move forward with what could be done within 2 million.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much. You're welcome to stay. We'll circle back with you. Next item, we should probably get to the fields unless somebody had something real quick so we can keep rolling here. So thank you, Gretchen. And we'll keep in touch with you on things, but you're welcome to stay. So John, do you want to start with the fields and give us an update on your committee? Go ahead, Adri.
I don't know if anybody's been looking at the chat, but Mary asked for the layout and Rob sent it out. So if people want to look on their iPad, it's already there. So.
Oh, awesome. Okay, thank you. Yeah, and I think that would be something that we could all definitely our board needs to take a look at that. Tony, do you need something? Okay, I can't hear you.
I'm just looking at Rob's picture he sent.
Okay, I thought you were pointing her. Okay, John, here we go.
All right. So on the agenda is a kind of a outline of what we've kind of prioritized and split up as far as the rec fields subcommittee. Kind of broke it down as in talking with our subcommittee, we've identified mandatory things that we want to get in place depending on the priority list. So the first thing, softball complex, we kind of earmarked about $750,000 from the original proposal that was sent to us on the things that we need, and to make that, to get the people, the kids and the adults feet on the ground, what we want to maximize how much usage that could get. So in order to do that, we want to get as big a square footage as we can, so that in the future, we want to get everything laid down on the ground. In the future, we can build up from that. So we want to get the biggest square foot print that we can possibly get. And so we want to do the 4 fields with irrigation and fencing, get everything fenced in. We want the dugouts to be fenced in. And then we need a storage shed for concessions, groomers, bathrooms possibility, depending on the cost of those. But those are the 3 items that we want to make sure that we have in place for our softball complex. And given our original numbers from the architect and Marcus Construction, we believe we can fit that into that budget that we have there. And then the second priority list for us is we want to get the 2 turf fields set up for recreation with the uses of soccer, youth football, rec football, and just summertime use and all the other activities that can be placed on there. And we want to, I put the wrong term down. I put rebar. That's not, I don't know what I was thinking. Rob always gives me a hard time about this one, but it's the concrete barrier that needs to go around the field so that you can attach the bubble to it. Rob, what's that called again?
Grade beam.
Thank you. It's called grade beam. So it's the concrete, and we've gone back and forth of elevated grade beam or grade beam that's underneath the ground. And basically there's a big cost difference of elevating the grade beam just due to the amount of concrete that you have in. But the elevated grade beam is a much better for maintenance and clearing snow in the winter time. So that's an item that we have to determine the cost savings for putting it into the ground versus elevating it outside of the turf fields. And then we'll decide on how we do that depending on the cost of the things that we have. And then we have a list of alternates there. We'd like to get lights on the turf fields because a lot of the youth activities for soccer and football are in the fall or in the evening times. And then bathrooms at softball fields. We'd possibly one of the fields have championship dugouts and scoreboards on them. And then netting, batting cages, bullpens, bleachers. And then beyond that, an alternative would be the membrane for the bubble, which is the actual bubble itself. And then if that happens, then we'd need a possible addition of a parking lot so that people can park on the north side of the Civic Center, separate from the arena. And then that way the traffic flow would be much better. And then that would allow us to not have to connect the bubble to the Civic Center, and that would save on locker rooms and then costs of the connection to each other. So it'd be two separate buildings for us. So we've gone back and forth on sizes of the bubble. Rob and I and Tony have been connecting with the different companies that do the bubble and just trying to get kind of nail down a cost of, what is a smaller bubble cost, and then therefore a smaller bubble would be cheaper to operate in the wintertime as far as heating goes and putting up and taking down as well. I would say this, that the company that we're talking to is Yaden Domes out of the Twin Cities. They are very motivated to keep their factories running during this time with COVID and stuff. So they're willing to work with us a ton and to make this happen for our community and things. So that's just kind of a brief update on that. And Tony, I don't know if you have anything to add to that. And then with that, any questions that you guys have.
Thank you, John. Sounds good. Anybody have any questions? Audrey?
I'm feeling like I'm the only one asking questions, but just at the softball complex, if I heard you correctly, you're talking about 4 fields, but would they be built so that we could be bidding on tournaments for both, like school tournaments and tournaments that might be available in other ways with that, so that they would be equal? I know you talked about one championship field, but I was just curious if they're all being built to the standards that you could do that.
Yes, yep, all the fields. I don't know, I can't remember the exact dimensions, but they're geared toward girls fast pitch softball and youth baseball. Those sides fields. So yes, I don't know if it's 12U. I'm not 100% certain, but it is being built as far as the dimensions of the field, so that yes, we can host softball, fast pitch softball tournaments for girls, and then youth baseball tournaments as well. And that was a big priority for us to make sure the fencing is all regulation for those types of tournaments that we can host.
Just a follow-up question to that. I know you mentioned concession stands, and I think that's an issue for us in lots of different places, but just with having participated, my daughter with playing softball, concessions is very important if you're going to host a tournament. And so I'm just curious if we're talking about something substantial enough to be able to handle a tournament for concessions.
Right. The original plan that we got from WSN had the concession stand at $400,000. And that was just really blew our budget up with that. So we and just spitballing ideas about having a stick built building. We want it to be a good size and definitely have an area for a good concession stand. Currently, our softball fields at the school north of the Civic Center is very poor for a concession stand. So yes, we would build a building. It may not be like a brick and mortar building. It may be more of a stick built building that we could have a bigger concessions area and storage area for the groomers and things and stuff. So those are all, with the proposal we first got, we just knew that that wouldn't be affordable, but we do want a building in the center of the pinwheel to be able to have concessions and have a storage area.
Audrey and the group, the concession stand will not be a commercial kitchen. We'll have a grill and refrigeration and those types of things. And we've even talked about maybe grabbing the high school's football building that they just built and rolling that in just to save costs, or like John said, do a stick build. And then what John's referring to for the championship field, it's more or less just, that'll be the more fancy, if we can say that, nicer dugouts, better looking bullpens, maybe like instead of a chain link backstop, it'll be netting. And that's the championship field. But all fields are, I think, marked for 220 feet. So they're great for fast pitch softball and they're great for youth baseball.
Okay, so just my sarcasm has to come back a little bit. So are you providing for shade?
Well, there's trees in the plans. There's trees in the plans. It'd be great if we could have one of those giant like giraffe trapeze things, but we don't have the funding. Maybe that could be a fundraiser for the community or the baseball, softball boosters.
I think you may, for the first few years before the trees get big enough, you may have to bring your umbrella.
So just so I'm clear, not in the in that area much as far as those two sports, all girls recreation and softball all the way through can play there, and then boys recreation softball can play there probably through 7th grade, if that's 12U, is that? And then when they get older, 8th, 9th grade, they'd go down to Swanson. Is that for somebody that's not involved in the ball associations? Is that sound about right?
I don't know. When do they start going to the longer bases for baseball? Is that after 9 or 10U? Mary, do you know?
So for instance, what we're doing at Blue, they would be able to, we have a adjustable base, whether it's a 75-foot, they're 90-foot bases, which you have for the varsity and beyond, but JV and beyond. But right now, well, Rob, you speak up. Are there any youth that play out at the high school softball other than, yes, we use that facility for the youth tournament, but that's one time a year. Is that correct?
Yes, we can use the high school softball fields for 3rd and 4th grade baseball and 5th and 6th grade, as long as the pegs are adjustable. Typically, when you get to the 7th grade level, let's say for school ball, they do get to the 75-foot pegs, and then 8th grade plays at the 90-foot pegs. And then you got to deal with the pitching mounds with different base or lengths there. Typically, 3rd and 4th grade is like 46 feet to 48 feet. Then you go to 52 to 54, and then so on from there when you get older. So they're all skin fields, so you would have to have portable mounds in there for the baseball, but that's why they get to be multi-purposed that way.
Right, and you would have all your rec programmings from 1st grade up to whatever 3rd, 4th grade or 5th and 6th grade baseball. T-ball you'd have out there, all your your kindergarten T-ball and your 1st and 2nd grade baseball as well for all your rec programs.
Yeah,
Well,
between that and the turf.
Go ahead, Rob, sorry.
Between the fields that would go to the south, those would be kind of more game fields for the nights and stuff, but we could still use those for programming during the day, along with some of the turf fields as well.
Well, it's
That's the
nice.
plan.
It'd be nice to have 8 teams on one field in one location for young families. I think it's going to be fantastic for little kids t-ball and little girls rec softball. Any other questions?
John, so when you talked about, I wanted to hear about the location of that building for the groomer and for the concession stand. So that's still in the center concept.
Right, good. Yes,
Okay.
yes. We would think, and then in the future, as you add to that, you could, if you had that storage area in the center, if you add on in the future, you could change those maybe into changing rooms for the kids, and then build an outbuilding for your groomer and such. So if it's big enough size wise, you could turn that into a couple changing rooms on site right there in the middle, and then add an outbuilding for your groomers and your rakes and all those types of things.
And then for each of those 4 fields, are you also including some kind of structure to sit, or is it all bring your own chair?
Yes, the bleachers are an alternate. The only in this after I put this together, I had reached out to Brent and Shannon to say, send us your prioritization of, what is there. That's in discussions of, what type of bleachers, how big of bleachers. And that goes back to the championship field. Maybe that field has a little nicer set of bleachers, and the other ones have a little smaller set, maybe just aluminum bleachers you bring in. I know there's also been discussions with the school moving their bleachers over for the non-championship fields that they have. They have and so those are things that, we're discussing as a group of, if we already have some bleachers and we're able to use them, we will be able to share those and bring them over to the softball complex, baseball complex. And then with the championship field is maybe making a little nicer set of bleachers for that field.
Okay, if there's no further questions, we'll move to the next item on the agenda. And I've got, so the next item, oh, I'm sorry, Tony, you added, if Steve or Brian want to give a 90-second overview of the tax revenue, and maybe there's not an update on how that's looking. I'm sure that's a challenge, but if Steve or Brian, do you got anything on that?
I would defer to Steve on that.
I think, go ahead, Steve, if you've got anything, and I know we're putting you on the spot, so if you don't, that's understandable too.
Well, and I'll try to keep it quick too. I know that time is fleeting by. We just got an update a half hour before the meeting started from the Department of Revenue for the month of March, which would have included half of a shutdown. The total for that month was 163,000. So the average for the first 6 months from October through March is about 161 a month. Now, just to give the committee again an update on timing of when we will know the process that the Department of Revenue does, it usually takes 10 weeks from the end of the month for them to reconcile and give us actual numbers. So with the shutdown, we will not know the actual numbers for April and May until August, the second week of August. June, which is again now maybe still considered a partial shutdown, we won't know the actual numbers for June, the month of June, until September. So there's a 10-week lag between when taxes are collected and the Department of Revenue gives us the actual numbers. But these numbers are a little bit more promising. I was expecting them to be a little lower for March than what that 163 is. So we'll be putting that report out to the Finance Committee Thursday of next week. So that'll be available.
Well, and that basically, I mean, I just hit the calculator. I'm not a numbers guy, but that multiply that times 12 times 13 is 25 million. So anyways, I know everything's up in the air, but that's at least encouraging. So thanks, Steve, for the numbers. It's good information. John.
Does that include, Steve, like the online sales too, or does that even lag further behind?
That includes all sales. I have had contact with the Department of Revenue, and the only breakdowns that they can provide are the sales, actual sales, any kind of use tax, and the vehicle excise tax collected in the city. Now, we have had conversations, and we continue to work with Aaron Bachman from the EDC, Ken Warner at the Chamber, and those organizations. We have some retail sales. Willmar is 75% of retail sales in Kansas County, but we're only about 66% in comparative to sales tax collections compared to the county. So that means that there has to be retail sales in the city of Willmar that they're delivering to a county resident. And we're still working with them to try to bring that together and figure out where that might be. That may be a lumber yard, that may be something that delivers something outside the corporate limits of Willmar. And we also are reviewing the numbers from New London and Spicer comparative to the county numbers. So we're looking at all the numbers and still trying to figure out why they're coming in a little lower than what they had been anticipated.
Okay, good information. Anybody else? Appreciate the update, Steve. Thank you. And then we'll move to number 5, last item on the agenda. So I put this together. Let me run through it a little bit. This is, I guess I listened to a couple of council meetings, and this is kind of a concept. If people want to take a look at it, I think I wrote it up. I kind of would like to, either today or next meeting, have our board kind of approved kind of like a blueprint or a plan, and a couple reasons for that. One is that's kind of the direction and the message that I've received from the council, not formally or directly, but that's kind of what I feel would help the council. The second thing I think is the general public would then have an idea. The third thing would be kind of like we set up the structure of our committees, and that's posted online. We kind of follow that process. You know, we got to go through the subcommittee, the different steps. And then the other reason I thought about this is we're going to have 3 new city council members coming into November. So if we could put something like this together, and the reason my opinion is we haven't done this originally because we just figured we could probably move forward and fund things as they came along just based on the economy, and that, well, obviously that's changed. So this is a concept that I put together. It certainly can be tweaked if it's obviously the first 2 on the list are pretty much done. You've got Robbins Island and you've got Swanson that are funded. And then at that point, I put rec fields to be funded. And then I put, you know, we kind of moved the indoor spaces kind of back to the holding position, which would be the event center. It would be the community center, obviously. The bubble within the fields committee would have to be looked at differently. And then I put in there, you know, the funding for the storm would just kind of have to come in, and when those projects come up, they would submit. And obviously all this is contingent upon funding, which would be, you know, Steve and Brian would have to say, okay, here's where we're at. And then we'd have to look at that, and then we'd have to take it to the council, and the council would have to say, okay, yeah, we're comfortable with that, make a recommendation. So this is something that I kind of put together. You know, I talked to a few people about it, just got a few opinions, and I just wanted to see what people thought of putting a funding structure together. And then we would obviously kind of approve this. It would go to the council at some point today or next month. And this is probably the model we would follow. Obviously, it would be, if something crazy happened, we'd have to revisit it. But I think it's something that I think we should do, and I'm interested in hearing feedback from others. Let's just have a motion to approve it then, if it's that simple. Go. Anthony? Does anybody have any, John, questions? No, feedback. Did people get a chance to look at this or process it? I mean, what does it look like? Is this something from a council perspective, Sean, Audrey? Is this helpful versus, again, we'll have 3 new people. Would this be a positive? You have any feedback on this concept? Go ahead, Mary.
I could have asked this question a while ago with Gretchen, but why does it, did I miss something with the event center number 4? It says eligible to access $2 million. Where did that come from?
So I put, I put that in there. So can you put your phone, microphone on mute, Mary? So I put that in there because I hadn't heard from the event center. My thought was it's going to be tough to put 8 million in for an indoor space right now on the agenda. And so I put, if they want to put in, I think Gretchen gave us a couple items. So that did not come from Gretchen or the event center. It came basically from me just putting in there, well, let's get something down for that committee. That can be adjusted, it can be tweaked. I just put that in there for, just so every committee was represented, was where that came from.
Man, I think this is the kind of thing that I think we have to do. You are correct. The transition of the council changing is going to be a big deal, and we want to keep this, keep the momentum going, if you will. I really am. I didn't have a lot of questions today. I'm doing a lot of listening, and what I heard today is the kind of stuff we needed to hear from all of those other groups that have kind of been a little bit slower getting here, or maybe we didn't have the invitation out to them. I don't have no idea, but the input has been very valuable today, and I think that this kind of a template laid down is a really good map for the future. Maybe it won't look exactly as it does today, but I thank you for putting the draft forward. And this is a good place to start.
Thank you. Tony.
I also like this priority list, and I'll kind of list my reasoning. I think, you know, we funded the first 2 projects, Robbins Island and Swanson. I like the rec fields ahead of the event center for 2 reasons. One, the rec fields will be new opportunities, and it's not duplicating any services that we already have in town. And what I mean is we're going to upgrade the baseball softball complex, and then we're going to have artificial turf fields that's going to allow the softball team to get out there earlier. We're not going to have to worry so much about drainage and weather conditions. Soccer can play almost until, you know, depending on funding for lights, they can play as long as they can outside of their sunlight. The event center has done a great job identifying that 2 million, because those are definite needs that the Civic Center has, the locker room addition, the office space and meeting rooms that the city needs, the Civic Center needs. The additional event rec center gym space, I think that's going to be really nice when we have that. But already the school has those additional gym spaces on the high school. We have Lakeland now, so I don't think gym space is as much of an issue. But certainly in the future, centralizing the Park and Rec department, having all those amenities and services and opportunities for the youth and the citizens really makes sense. Let the event center continue to crunch the numbers and get that building ready. And I think we can proceed with adopting the priority list and then send that to the council.
Thank you. Anybody else have questions? John.
I don't know if this is quite on topic, but it's piggybacking a little bit on what Tony said. Is when we started this back 2.5 years ago, we sat down and we started to plan out what does Willmar, what do we not have for our community, you know, and I think this priority list identifies a lot of those things in order of what our community needs and what we went door knocking for, and trying to sell the community to vote for these projects. And I think, I think you've identified, Matt, a good list and a good priority of what should be laid out first in the order that they should be done. And so I think it's a good place to start. I think there's a lot of pent up energy to get these projects going and showing the public and the community that we are moving along and we are getting some things done and so that our public can use these facilities.
Audrey, go ahead.
Just seeking clarification on the recreation fields as it lists 6 million. That is what was on the Invest in Willmar projects, correct? But the costs that we're reviewing would not include the bubble, correct?
So what I've got on there is their full budget of their 6 million for the rec center fields or the recreation fields. So how I see that playing out, Audrey, is yes, the cost of the bubble is in there, but what they would do then is they would have to present to us and to the council, and we and the council would have to approve, just like they didn't approve the shelters for the Robbins Island right now. They certainly would have that option to not approve the bubble, or if they wanted us to prioritize. That's how I view that. So I didn't specifically say which item is approved, which not. It's their budgets, and the only reason I took the 2 million, the other reason was the 2 million on the event center was because there was 2 million set aside for some of those upgrades and 8 million for the event center.
Just keeping with the concept of not doing anything that raises our staffing costs or our operation costs. If we list this recreation fields as is with the 6 million, that it would include the bubble, that's a huge cost as I understand it. And I've not seen the figures, but I've been told. And so that really goes against the, if that's the next item listed, it would be presenting like we were going to do that, which would affect operation costs. So I'm just seeking clarification on that.
Right, Audrey, yes, we listed in my layout on the outline and the agenda here, we listed the bubble as alternate. But in order to do the bubble later in 2 years down the road, when the city is okay with adding those operational costs, we can't just go then tear up the turf and then put the grade beam in there. And then, so part of the cost, yes, we would, the membrane of it and that part of the bubble would be an alternate and would not be funded if the city is not up for adding those operational costs. So that's kind of why I put the monies there. So what I have is about, almost $3.5 million of the, because we have 4.5 the actual spend out of our 6 million. So that would leave the $1 million for the membrane parking lot alternate or softball upgrades as well.
So just like you've taken the 2 million out of the event center, maybe that same concept for the rec fields should be done versus listing the 6 million. That's a question. I mean, just from a clarification of what I understand where the council is at with not wanting to do something with operation costs. And I think you have asterisks and things on the agenda for that too. So I'm just curious what other people think.
My thought on that would be, my thought on that is the 2 million didn't come up on that recreation flyer that's on the website. There's 8 million for a rec center, and then there's 2 million set aside for like locker rooms and stuff like that on that flyer. So that's kind of where that part of the reason where that 2 million kind of got pulled off. That didn't get pulled off the rec center. It kind of came pulled off of that. So that flyer had 2 million separated for like the outdoor rink, locker rooms, whatever. What I think, Audrey, I don't know if this is specifically answering your question, but this is what I believe. I believe that anybody that brings in the bubble, the community center, or the event center, they're going to have to get the council to approve the operational costs and projections on that. I believe that's going to be a part of the presentation. So that's where those three, I think, are on hold. So I don't think approving this is automatically approving the bubbles going. I think that's going to have to be vetted out. Brian.
Yeah, I guess following up on that, what we've got, I think, is $20 million in projects, and that came from a conservative calculation. And if you back out Robbins Island, Swanson Field, the 7 million in stormwater and the recreation field, you're left with $2 million. And that then led to the, what can we do in the event center? But what I would like to just point out that I believe that the event center should probably have the next 1 or 2 projects ready to go, because if the dome alternate is not accepted, we still want to spend that $1 million or whatever the cost of the dome is. We want to be ready. So I guess, my thought is that being we have alternates on the rec fields, whether or not we're going to do them, because we don't know yet, we should also be staged with the event center to have the next 1 or 2 projects ready to go should money become available. Does that make any sense?
Well, I think you're tying into this whole organizational chart here, where so we can say who's up next, so they're ready. I think that's what I believe. That, yeah. Anybody else?
Gretchen has a thing in the comments. She'd like to make another clarification of her 2 million if she could.
Gretchen, you still with us?
I am. So I just want to, as a subcommittee, we had a question. There is this one document back from November in 2018 that, as Matt's mentioning, has this split of 8 million versus 2 million, and different bullets are listed under those 2 amounts. We talked with the finance committee because we wanted to get clarification on that, and there was no voting on an actual split of 8 million versus 2 million. It's not in any of the bills. It's not in any minutes. So that split, although it's on that document, is not what we were looking at when we are talking about the 2 million that we want to move forward with, because the bullet points under the 2 million on that document could never be done in 2 million. There's no way. So I just want to make sure it's understood that that 8-2 split is on one document, but it is not what our subcommittee is using to move forward at all. It was not voted on that way, so we were not looking at it that way.
Yeah, correct. It was just a summary after this all got approved that we wanted to show the public, just to follow along on what the concepts were. Yes, they weren't specifically voted on or approved. Brian.
Yeah, I just wanted to also highlight having a plan setting forth what the Invest in Willmar is proposing. Great idea, but ultimately what it comes down to is the city council is going to be asked to release the architects and construction manager to continue on with the design of these facilities through completion. And so I guess that's our goal, is to take this and say, council, let the architects continue. And so that's why I was just bringing up that if we in fact have questions about the rec field, that we should have opportunity, which means that the architects need to, maybe they don't do all of the event center stuff, but they've got to do something more than just $2 million. Because if an opportunity comes up and they have another $500,000 project and there's 500,000 and we say, let's go with it, we don't want to wait another 3 months while they design it, kind of a thing. So that's that's, I guess, why I was bringing it up before, because ultimately we're asking for the council to reauthorize activity for all of the projects.
Audrey.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to Gretchen for bringing that up. I think we had a discussion about this document that nobody really knew where this document came from, and that I thought we had discussed at our meeting to go back to the original flyer to make sure that we were following what was on the original flyer. And so if we're going to start dividing things up and doing some things, then I think I'm not opposed to that, but I think we need to go back to the original flyer because that's what we're telling people we're selling to the community, and then come up with our own way of how we're going, what things we're going to do next.
And I think most of those items are from the flyer. They just kind of are from the flyer that went to the public. I believe those were, we wouldn't have been, they're just laid out a little bit different. Those would be things they could do. We can't really fund $3.5 million to the event center because you can't build half of an event center. We have to fund the whole thing, or we got to wait. And then what do you want to do if you can't fund the whole thing? So,
But I'm not disagreeing with you, Matt, but I don't think this was a document that was ever approved by anyone. And so I really would like us to go back to the original one. And I think I remember we had that conversation at another meeting.
okay, yeah, I don't know where we can get the original one up, and I think it's probably got, like I said, I think it's got the same stuff on there. So if they wanted to put in for, what I envision probably, and I don't know because nobody knows, but if we could do maybe item 3 and 4 next year, and then if that goes well, the economy looks good, and then maybe we can start working on these bigger projects with the indoor spaces and start revisiting. I mean, my thought would be, looks like we're going to fund 1 and 2 this year. If we could fund 3 and 4 in 2021, as long as we don't have another crazy situation, and then in year 2021, if we're funding number 3 and 4, then we start planning to hopefully to fund these other projects that we did go to the public with. I mean, that's just my vision, but and I'd like to have something in there for the event center, whatever they can do. Maybe it's 1 million, maybe it's 3 million, whatever they can do, but they wouldn't be able to start the event center next year if that's just based on what we're dealing with.
Matt?
Yes, Audrey.
Dennis is texting me that he's having trouble. He wanted to ask some questions. I've asked him if he can just try to call in, and he's having trouble communicating, but I'm okay with what's been done. I'm still in the point of, we cannot, and I don't think we can next year either, be doing things that are going to add to the operational costs. And I don't think we can state that right now. So that's, and I get that we need to have the direction, but as far as putting an approval out there to do this next year, I think we have to wait to see what happens.
And I would say, Audrey, I agree 100% with what you just said. Obviously, everything's contingent upon financing and council being comfortable. At the end of the day, they'll make the call. Just real quick, and then I'll go to Sean. I did get a note here from Dennis. He says, I like this list. I can't get through. Please pass on my endorsement. That's a text message from Dennis. Sean.
I don't want to get in the weeds here, this might be more of a council thing, but I just want an initial response kind of from the city administrator. I think if we embrace the time frame that's been put forward, I'm curious if we were to release those architects for the event center and rec fields, what's that going to do to the bottom line for having to advance those pieces to get them ready for things next year?
As far as cost?
Correct.
Well, if I remember the calculation that I put together, the amount that we would collect would be adequate to cover all the soft costs. That's the architect, 90%, and the construction manager at like 10, 15%. So I think we're fine with getting all the design work this year, given the fact that we We have some better than expected sales tax numbers coming in, because we thought they were really going to tank, but maybe they're not going to be so bad, but we won't know till August. So if these are the numbers that we're receiving, we'll be fine by December 31st to cover all of our architect costs.
Yeah, that was where I would just want to know that we're not putting forward a plan that is not going to be realistic, but it sounds like it would be. So thank you.
Well, being conservative, it's realistic. But we don't know, as Steve pointed out, we may not know until August and September if our projections were being really fiscally conservative, or if they were way off the mark. So now we have some time to let pass before we know exactly where we're at.
And I think what's got to be just very, very hard to know, track, or project is the law that passed just a year or two ago regarding the online sales tax that's getting collected. That has to be almost impossible to try to figure that part out. That's new, that you have to pay sales tax from where you order from on your purchases. John?
So, sorry. So this may be way off, and the architects, they're not on this call, so they don't hear this, but speaking from a rec field perspective, I don't know how much we need the architect anymore going forward. With the companies you work with for turf fields and bubble and softball fields, you know, how much of a demand do we need to continue to spend that money on an architect when the companies that lay these fields down know what they're doing, and we have a construction manager that's supposed to keep them in line with the things that they're supposed to be doing. So I know we haven't had any discussions on this, and nobody probably knows. And I know that far as designs, they're not designing a building or anything. So you know, do we if we're gonna, you know, if the council approves the rec fields as a go ahead, I mean, how much more do we need the architect for that outdoor complex that we have? I don't know. Just a question, maybe rhetorical or not, but that's just my thought after going through this.
Well, I think the chair of the committee has to do their homework there and present what they think is best, just like Mary did, just like Rachel did, and they have to decide the decisions within their committee on what direction they want to go with. So the chair of the rec field committee and the chair of the event center committee, those, we would look for a presentation specifically on what do you want to do. It looks like this is where we're at now. Financing, if everything goes, if Steve says, hey, we're looking really good, let's go here, then we can certainly expand and fund more. But obviously we want to be smart and make sure that we're doing our due diligence. And then obviously anybody with bringing indoor spaces, they need to have a budget, and the council can reject anything, just like they did the shelters at Robbins Island. So they could reject this community center if they don't like the operating budget. That'll be at the end of the day the council's call. And that's how I see that. I mean, that's what I believe, how that will come out. So whoever got the numbers and got that laid out is going to be in front of us and in front of the council. Audrey.
Yeah, just going to ask Mr. Gramitz to speak to the architects. I mean, we have a contract with them. I don't know how we would go forward without them.
You can cancel an architect's contract at any point in time that you want to do so. But what you can't do is to work with specific companies to provide a specific product if it exceeds $175,000. That has to be publicly bid. And so even though we may feel comfortable with a particular company that can provide all the services that we're looking for, we cannot just contract with them. If I remember right, all all the potential construction is like $4.5 million for the rec fields. That is substantially above $175,000. So we do have to bid out the different parts, and putting up the dome is just one of the many things that the architect would do. I guess I just don't see how you would not utilize the architect to put everything together so that the construction manager can then go out to bid. That's just me, but you can probably build a ball diamond with just bringing in a bunch of people with shovels and gravel if you want. That don't mean it can't happen. It just means that there's certain laws that we've got to follow, and usually when they're this big, they require an architect stamp on the plans, and the only way to get the plans is to hire an architect to put it on paper. So that's just my thoughts, but anybody can do whatever they want.
Couple things I think we need to get moving. One, I think the architect has done a good job for rec fields. They've laid out a plan and that, so we utilize their services. And it just depends on the specifications on which company gets the bid. So that's correct. Two, I think we're getting lost in the weeds here. All we're trying to do with this priority list is to give the city council a roadmap of what we want to follow. Okay, we're not saying anything else about spending, anything like that. That is totally contingent on sales tax revenue and what the finances look like. So I think we can move forward with the priority list with the rec fields, the softball complex, the 2 artificial turf fields, and then next would be the event center to get those all in line. In response to Audrey's concern about additional costs, none of those things should really have any additional costs other than providing staff to run the programs, which we would be doing anyway. And so when it comes time to building the rec center and the event center and then putting a bubble up, I think, Rob and his staff and the city administration needs to do their pro formas and to see how much revenue we can generate from rentals, other events coming in, and see what that costs are going to look like before we decide to proceed with the bubble or proceed with building completing the event center. Certainly the locker rooms and the office space and the meeting rooms, that's definitely a need at the Civic Center, and we need to move with that, and we can move with that along with the rec fields probably at the same time, again, contingent on finances and if that's available. All we're doing is providing a roadmap. So what I would like to do, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the priority list next to be sent to the city council to include the rec fields, the softball complex, the 2 artificial turf fields, and then the infrastructure for a bubble, along with the locker rooms, office space, and meeting rooms for the Civic Center. I'd ask for a second.
So I've got a motion on the table to adopt the priority list, and then the committees within their budgets would work on their priorities. Is there a second to the motion?
I will, John Conold, I will second the motion.
Okay, discussion. I'll start the discussion. One would be, I view this as a working document that could potentially be amended, not certainly majorly amended, but it just gives us a roadmap to give to the council to say, this is our vision, this is what we believe. Certainly, if something dramatically changed, example would be, we could fund 20 million next year, or we can't fund anything next year. We just have to continue to keep this in front of us. That's how I look at this. I believe the council, it would help them, and then would help the new council members to have kind of some direction here. So I'm in favor of this. And certainly, like I said, we'd have to trust that, yeah, there's contingencies all over the place, from financing, from bonding, to getting approval from the council, to running performance. So I would support moving forward with this as is. Any other questions or discussion? Audrey?
I'm supportive of the list. What I'm still struggling with is the way the rec fields are being presented. It's the total. And it implies that we are going to do all of it, even though I understand the components of it and the dollars, et cetera. I'm just concerned that it looks like we're bringing forward the proposal to do the dome.
Thank you.
The motion did not include the dome. Just
well,
the
the motion includes the $6 million budget. That committee is going to decide what their priority list is. John?
Maybe within our committee, the discussion is if we're able to purchase the dome and at this time at a cheaper cost due to the manufacturer wanting to keep their factories going and purchasing the materials, as long as the city council says yes in the future, once we're more stable with our operating costs, we are going to be willing to add those costs to our budget, then we could put it up. So that would be, if we're able to, a question for the council, are we able to, purchase or prepare for putting up the bubble in the future of putting it up and then having those operational costs? So if we're able to spend that money, like you did for the lights at Swanson, you bought the lights last year and you're getting them put up this year. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Right.
Yeah, I guess the way I've seen it usually done would have been much like the alternates that you included in the bid documents as alternate 1, 2, or 3. And if the bids come in really cheap, you do them. If they don't come in cheap, you don't do them until you can do them at a later date. So that leaves your options open to the very end by including it as an option in the bidding documents. So that'd be my recommendation. So rather than just say bid everything out here, the problem comes in is if you go down your list of priorities and there's absolutely no way you got enough money left to even consider the dome fabric as an option, then you don't include it because you don't have the money. But if you did have the money, put it in as an alternate. When the bids come in, make your decision then, or the council can make their decision then.
Okay. Audrey?
Yeah, I just want to clarify, I'm supportive of the dome. I just don't think that we can do any projects right now that add on to our operational costs. And so to say that we're going to do it if we have the money, then says we will incur the operational costs. And so I'm struggling with that separation of being able to afford the project versus being able to afford the operations.
Okay, Sean?
Well, that's the fundamental question we talked about before. The plan is what it is. And when it gets to the council, if operational costs are one of those filters you're going to use, then that would probably go on the wayside. But as far as this group is concerned, we are looking for that direction. So I'm in favor of putting forward the direction, realize, yeah, the filters that council members will use to what they're going to prioritize might be different. But that's why they brought the whole project forward with Robbins Island, and the filtered out a couple of those outbuildings. That's how it's going to go. I think that's kind of how it's set up. So I'm supportive of doing it, and we'll see what happens down the road. But I think you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. This is what I've been waiting for as a council member from this committee is some clear direction on where we're going and prioritizing and putting projects in order with some sense that I can rationalize to folks when they call me about it. So I'm supportive of this. It's going to be contingent on all those groups that they have to meet and list those things out if they want to have additional direction. But it's going to be important for continuity. So I thank you.
Thanks, Sean. Tony.
I see Andrew Lindquist from Marcus is on. Can we just ask for his input if he'd like to share any with what we've discussed so far?
Putting me on the spot, Tony. There you go.
Sorry
Yeah.
about that.
No, I mean, I guess I'm listening to get a feel for what you guys are going, and I understand some of your points, and you know, from my perspective, you guys are heading exactly where I think you need to go, but I'm just waiting to know so we know how to react and how we guide the process. So no, I think you guys are headed right where you need to go. I don't think I've heard anything today that concerns me about the direction you guys are going. So yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew.
I'd like to call for the previous question.
Okay, so
You have to vote to stop debate, Matt.
okay, so we're done discussing. So we'll do a roll call. Mary Swatsky.
Matt,
Sorry. What?
you gotta vote on that to stop debate, and then you vote on the motion.
I got you. Okay. A vote. Was there a second on to stop the debate?
I don't think you need a second on that. Just
Okay.
vote. Yeah.
Okay, vote.
Matt, I think it would probably be wise to do a roll call on this and then do the vote afterwards.
Okay, stop the debate. Mary?
Well, I had another question, but so I'm a little bit confused. So I don't know. I think I have to pass right now. I have another question. So go ahead.
Okay, so Mary's a no. Sean?
Yes.
Audrey?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Tony?
Aye.
And I would say yes. So, and Bob and Dennis are not on the call. So that motion carries to move to voting on the motion on the table, which is to adopt the priority list. And we'll do a roll call. Mary?
Matt.
Yep.
Before we vote, could we please have the motion read back to us?
Yeah. So the motion that I've got is to adopt the priority list that is in the presentation and take it to the council. So
As is.
as is, there was no adjustments or changes to it. Tony referenced the committees and things, but there wasn't any. Yeah, he was just, it's to adopt the concept in the proposal that you all have received. So roll call. Mary?
Maybe this is where I had the question. So, so I'm sorry, I'm a step behind, but I'll just go ahead. Yes.
Sean?
Aye.
Councilman Nelson?
Aye.
Conal?
Aye.
Ammon?
Aye.
And I would be an aye, so that's 6 ayes and no nays. That motion carries. And we will have more discussion on that as we move forward. Anything else? I guess we're pushing almost 2 hours here. So I guess at this point, if everybody's comfortable, a couple check housekeeping deals. Number one, I've got July 8th at 4 p.m. for the next meeting. And for this, couple things. Remember, any subcommittee that meets, just a reminder, I've reminded the chairs they need to send their their meeting notes to, I think, is it David Hillenbrand, I believe, or Janelle. So those get posted on the website so everybody can look if they want to know what's going on. So I reminded those chairs once again. So if you meet, make sure you're sending your meeting notes so that's public on the website. July 8th is the next meeting. I've also mentioned this to Mary. I want anybody else to know. If somebody believes or feels we need to meet or have an informational meeting on a specific topic before that, let me know, let Janelle know, Brian, whatnot. That's no problem at all. So if there's more of an informational or we want to figure out when to meet. So the next one's at 4 o'clock on the 8th. And then also if anybody has any agenda items between now and then, let us know. I think this is a great roadmap for us to move forward and to send to the council as a direction. You can basically copy and paste that, whether that's Janelle or Brian, whoever has that should be, nothing was adjusted from what I sent in. If anybody has any other announcements or follow-up, wrap-up topics, otherwise I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Meeting is adjourned. Thanks to everybody for coming. And or is there a second to adjourn the meeting? I think we're second. So the meeting's adjourned. If anybody had any other questions, or if anybody wants to follow up on some topics. Thank you for joining us.